Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jonathan from Generate, and welcome to this month's important webinar on the topic of everyday resilience, how to keep a bad 5 minutes from becoming a bad day. Today, we have two fantastic speakers and experts in the field, business, leadership, and accounting, Craig Yardley and Jennifer Myers, who are both passionate about helping businesses succeed. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items to mention. At the bottom of your screen, there is the Q&A button that will pop up the Q&A box where you can enter your questions, and Craig and Jennifer will address these questions towards the end of the webinar. Also on your screen, there is the chat function, and you can toggle who to send your comments to, whether that be to everyone on the webinar or to the panelists and host only. Finally, we are recording this webinar, and if you would like a copy, please let us know and via the chat, and we can arrange this for you after the webinar. Now, without further ado, please welcome Craig and Jennifer.
Good afternoon, team. Welcome to today's webinar. Good news that we're going to be heading into level 2 here very soon, and you all should be heading back to the practice and back to the office, which is exciting. Hey, Craig.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think we've been anticipating for quite a while, and it's exciting. I know things will have to look different, and you know, we at Generate have also been discussing with the team how things are going to need to look moving forward. And yeah, some things will be a bit clunky, but I think that's just how it's going to need to be.
What's going to be good when we get to level 2, Jennifer, is that we can start sitting in the same room again, a metre apart, and relate
Yeah.
better than over a computer connection.
Yes.
But hey, you've just got to run with the play. And for those out there who are already set and putting in place plans to get going tomorrow, I got a Facebook notification from my dentist that they'll all go tomorrow. So it was really good news to see and hear. So hopefully you guys are in the same boat.
Good. So team, today we're talking about resilience. And I know there's heaps of you on the call today, which is brilliant, from all over the country. So thank you for investing in yourself today and investing some time to take in some information that hopefully will be thought-provoking and helpful for you. As Craig mentioned, he and I are in separate places. I'm at my home out in the country. My connection out here isn't great, so I've turned off my video to help us hopefully remain pretty stable throughout this process today. So I'll be kicking to Craig a couple times throughout the session, but let's dive in, shall we? So resilience is all about how to keep a bad 5 minutes from becoming a bad day. Now, I know we've just come through more than a bad 5 minutes, but I think having some resilience moving forward in this whole process with what's been happening is really, really important to help us recover and come out strong on the other side. So for those of you who might be joining us for the first time, and I know there are a few of you today, we are Generate Business and Life Solutions. We specialize in working with dental and medical professionals all over the country. And Craig, do you want to just say hello real quick and tell them who you are?
Hi, everyone who don't know me. I've chartered accountant of nearly 30 years experience. Even better, I've experience of bringing up 5 kids, 4 girls and 1 boy. And so one of the things I did a few years ago was get into the leadership bubble, and not a good word to use, I guess, coming out of lockdown, never mind. Yeah, into the leadership, because at the end of the day, if I can grow myself, I can be a better husband, I can be a better business person, I can be a better father. So it's been a real good road over the last 4 to 6 years, and looking forward to walking this road with you from now on.
Cool beans. And for those of you who may not have met me yet, I'm Jennifer Myers. Yes, I am from North America. I'm from the States, been here in New Zealand for the past 10 years, became a citizen in 2016. So I am a Kiwi by choice. So happy to have been here during all this craziness. It's just not even funny. So yeah, I'm part of the Generate team, and have been a part of the team for, gosh, the whole time I've been here in New Zealand, which is awesome. And really specialize in that training, leadership, communication arm of the business. So Craig with the financial head, in addition to the leadership skills that he has, and I make a really good combination when it comes to working with our clients, because we've got the people side and the numbers side, which is awesome. So this is what we're covering today. I know this looks like a lot for 60 minutes, but that's cool. We'll get through it. Don't worry. We're going to be talking today a little bit about micro versus macro resilience, ways to become resilient, which are to refocus your brain, to reset primitive alarms, reframe your attitude, refresh your body, and renew your spirit. We've got a couple of special offers running at the moment. We'll tell you about those and how to get in touch. We'll run a bit of Q&A and tell you about what's coming up in the next couple of months. So that's us for today. And what do? We work with folks on from soup to nuts, right? Strategy through to planning, looking at growth. And next month's topic on the webinar is going to be all about growing out of COVID-19 and exit. What do you do when you're finished in the office and you want to move on to either the next thing or the next stage of your life? So that's what we help our clients with. How do we do that? We build relationships. We provide heaps of education, of which these webinars are a piece of that. But there's a whole lot more when you actually work with us, and we've got heaps of resources that we've collected over the past, as Craig said, 30 plus years from his side and 25 years from my side. So awesome stuff that we can bring to the table to help our clients out. All right, so we work with professionals all over New Zealand. We support you with not just the business side, but the numbers side. Both of us are certified members of the International John Maxwell team, which means we're certified leadership coaches and certified DISC behavioral consultants. We're big enough to have a team of experts in areas like profitability, marketing, leadership, health and safety, and human resources. So we've got extended team members around the country that we use when we need to for our clients. We're small enough to customize everything we do to what you need, and we come to you. So there's no need to travel to us. And especially now, that's just not an option. So there we go. All right. So in this webinar today, team, this talk I've done a couple of times, and it's been really well received, but it does have some personal examples in it. And yeah, this first bit is the first time I shared it was a bit cringy for me, but I think it's important to share because it kind of helps set the stage for what we're going to talk about. So 2008 for me, I was still in the States at the time, and it was just a really, really horrible year for me and my little family, right? I'm married to a clinical psychologist, and I've now got a daughter who's 18. So we were living in South Florida, beautiful part of the country, living the dream, right? But things weren't as peachy as they seemed from the outside. I, at that point, had actually reached a really low point in my life, and I can distinctly remember driving down the street that ran past my house. It was called Daniels Parkway one afternoon, and just kind of, I felt so miserable. I looked off to the side of the road there, and I wondered if, hey, maybe I should drive my car into that next telephone pole over there, and maybe that would make all my worries go away. So it's really hard for me to admit that because I've always been a positive person. But even someone who's really positive and who normally stays in a really optimistic space can get to a point in life where you consider awful things because you don't perceive that you've got any choice in an unbearable situation. So, and I think what happened to me at that point was I had gotten out of touch with habits that I had been using previously that helped to keep me resilient. So, that helped me to maintain my focus on what was really important and to help me remember that I had a choice about how to react to the circumstance that I was in. So, moving forward from that, moving to New Zealand, getting involved with the John Maxwell team. I was at the John Maxwell conference in Orlando, Florida 2 years ago, I believe now. And I heard this woman speak. Her name is Bonnie St. John. So she was a guest speaker who was at conference, and talk about somebody who had every reason to fall into a downward spiral and stay there. At the age of 5, one of her legs was amputated. And I forget the reason for that, whether it was a disease or it was deformed, something had happened to it. But she went on to pursue something that at the time was really unheard of for African Americans in the US. This was in the 70s and 80s. Even those with all of their physical abilities, competitive alpine skiing. So after years of training and persistence, and in the face of racism and physical challenges, she ended up the first African American to earn multiple medals at the Paralympics in 1984. After that, she went and finished her education and graduated from Harvard University. So now she's an author, a professional speaker, and tells her story so that she can help others. So she was really, really inspiring. And she has written a book called Micro Resilience. So she wrote this with her husband, Alan Haynes. And some of the concepts from the book are the things that we're going to be covering today in the session. So when we think about resilience, what comes to mind for you? If you would please, I would love for you to type something into the chat box for me. when you think of what resilience means. And I'm going to bring that up so that I can see what you're saying. All right, so if you bring up the little chat box that's on your Zoom toolbar there, and just type something, talk to me for a second. What comes to mind when I say resilience? Ability to cope. Thank you for that. The ability to cope. What else comes to mind? Resilience. Do you think of positivity and happiness? The ability to adapt. That's a really good one, and that's going to be relevant later, Claudia. K, being hit sideways and just sorting out the issue. Yep, things that come at you out of the blue and being able to roll with the punches. Sonia, finding strategies to get past something difficult. Surviving. Yep. Thanks, Jenna. Having coping strategies. Hey, Co, good to see you today. Brilliant. So absolutely, when we think of resilience, let's look at the real definitions there. The capacity, thank you for talking to me, I appreciate that. The capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness, or the ability of a substance or an object to spring back into shape. It's really grit. It's the mindset that says, if I fall down 10 times, I'm going to get back up the 11th time, and I'm going to keep going. And I think that's really important as we move forward in our businesses over the next few months, right? So when we think of resilience as well, it's kind of like a muscle that we can build. It's not really something that some of us are born with and others aren't. Some of us who have parents who have modeled resilience for us at a young age. Some of us seek out knowledge about how to bounce back. And some of us don't seem to have much of it at all. It just kind of depends on how your environment and how you've been brought up, really, and what you've been exposed to, and somewhat to your natural behavioral styles. But we can all develop our resilience strategies. So macro strategies, which is why we're looking at the map of New Zealand there, can be seen as lifestyle choices that really contribute to that grit or that toughness. And those are things like choosing to exercise regularly, eating a healthy diet, meditating, or whatever it is that you do regularly. Those long-term choices that sometimes don't show an immediate result. And then we've got micro resilience, which is all about the short-term tactics that, when applied, can have an immediate effect and can support the development of our long-term resilience habits. So these micro habits that we're going to be talking about today are really things that will help us support larger macro resilience, right? Help us become a bit more resilient in general. All right, sports psychologist James Bohr studied the top performers in the tennis world. So these are the world's number ones at the moment, and I've looked that up to make sure they're accurate. They change all the time. So at the moment, Novak Djokovic and Ashley Barty are the two tennis number ones. So what James Bohr discovered, was that all elite players had some sort of a ritual or reset activity that they performed between points, between games, between sets. Whether it was adjusting their racket, doing a certain physical motion over and over, or simply a few deep breaths, each of them had something that helped them recover from the previous exertion and reset their minds and their bodies for that next burst of focused activity. Those who didn't perform at elite levels did not have any regular ritual of any sort that the researchers could discern. I thought that was really interesting. It's kind of separating that good to great kind of thing, that great performers have some sort of mentally re-energizing activity that they did regularly throughout the time that they were focused and performing to help them bring their A game. So James Bohr concluded that even normal people could bring our A game 24/7 simply by recharging our batteries as we go. Micro strategies. So one of those things that helps us to maintain resilience and maintain the ability to roll with the punches is kind of the ability to focus. And I think our ability to focus is really under assault and has been for a long time. So Microsoft did a bit of research a few years back and found that the average attention span of a human is, are you ready for this one, Craig? 8 seconds. Isn't that crazy? Now, I think it's due to the massive amount of information that's thrown at us each day. Digital marketing experts estimate that we're exposed to between 4,000 and 10,000 ads per day. That's crazy. That doesn't even account for emails, phone calls, text messages, Facebook posts, news sound bites. How can our focus not be affected by the onslaught? So these things in and of themselves aren't bad. They just vie for our attention often all at the same time, which really tends to fracture our focus and shoots down our productivity. Now, I know in one of the sessions that we did relatively recently, we spoke a little bit about creating some boundaries around yourself and around your focus and your space. Now, I know that most of you work in offices that are relatively open, so it's difficult to put physical boundaries around yourself to protect your ability to focus, but there are some things that you can do that can help. We'll talk about those in a second. So, did you know that researchers found that GPs were more likely to give antibiotics to patients later in the day than they were in the morning? I found that fascinating. So why do you think that is? In the morning, they were fresher and more able to focus and problem solve and evaluate and really engage with the person they were sitting with. Versus late in the day, they were tired, they were over it, they just didn't want to think. Their brains were exhausted. And when we're exhausted, it's so much harder to focus. So again, really interesting information. So a couple of things that can help you is to keep your brain space freed up for activities that require you to focus. And the way you can do that is to offload stuff frequently. So Craig, I'm going to kick to you really quickly and ask you, how do you manage? Because I know you've got so many things floating through your head on a daily basis with everything you're involved in. How do you effectively offload all those random things that come into your brain that you need to remember, but you don't necessarily need to action right then?
I guess it's just something I've worked on over time. I call it the closed door strategy. You know, let's say I've got 300 clients that I'm remembering data about. While their door is closed in my brain, I can't remember much about them. But I use a trigger, either they're coming in to see me or I know that I'm thinking about that client for a particular reason. I'll open that door and have everything there ready for me to look at and understand and connect with. And I guess what some clients struggle to understand is they'll see me out of the work environment and they'll think that I know everything about them at that time. But I haven't opened the door because I also work in a profession where, for me, it's about confidentiality. It's about keeping things segregated. And so unless I'm in that work mode and the door's open, I cannot actually remember stuff about the client. And I guess everyone has their own way of doing it. And I know I'm a CD type personality, so that's how it works for me. I think as an I type personality, which is more your party type person, they might have a bit more of a problem putting doorways in their brains, but that's the best way that I can come up with explaining how I do it.
Cool. So Craig was just referring to the DISC personality profiles, behavior profiles, right? So Craig's a CD, which means he's detail-oriented, task-focused, and good at compartmentalizing that kind of stuff. And I'm more of the I personality, which is more outgoing, directive, big picture, hate detail, go off on tangents. So we make a really good combo when we work together. But also, yeah, for me, it's grabbing all of the random bits that fly into my brain, since I'm not very good at closing the door, and saying, okay, I'm going to get these out onto a piece of paper, into a diary, onto something that my brain trusts, that it knows I'm going to come back to when the time is appropriate. So, you know, sometimes you'll be in the middle of a consult and you'll think, oh, I need to remember to put that note in that client's file. Or we're out of milk, I need to pick some up on the way home. Or I need to tell the team about that cool new feature I figured out in Software of Excellence. So when your brain is attempting to hold on to too much stuff, thoughts, tasks, to-dos, our focus is compromised. So use whatever works for you to offload bits of information that you don't need right now, but that you need to remember later on. Create space in your brain. Help yourself out. All right. And, you know, here's a caveat, team. I'm not going to tell you anything today that is rocket science. It's just things that we tend to forget when we get busy and stressed, and forget to be mindful, right? So hopefully you've got a note paper and a little pen in front of you, and you can take some notes as you go through today.
I think what's interesting, Jennifer, is with where we have been with COVID and having a sort of closed down for 6 weeks, we've actually given our bodies a break. We've given our mind some space. And one of the things I'm picking up on talking to people is that they've actually enjoyed it from that perspective. Yes, business might be an issue, but they've enjoyed the rat race disappearing for 6 weeks. And I think if you can take anything from this period, you take how do I stop the rat race taking over again when I get back into the rat race?
Absolutely. So it's about protecting, helping yourself to protect your focus and protect that peaceful feeling that you get when you have a bit more balance in your life, right? You're just a bit more even. Something that also helps us to retain our focus is that exercise. Exercise has been proven to have an immediate effect on our brains. And we know that exercise has an immediate impact on our energy levels and on our body, but also has an immediate effect on our ability to focus and perform. This includes things as simple as stretching. So what a great, easy way to incorporate movement into a day where many of us spend a lot of time sitting. Depending on your role in your practice, that might not be you, but I know some of you are probably run off your feet during the day, but a lot of times, we spend quite a bit sitting. So it's just making sure that you spend a minute or two stretching throughout the day, and it can give you a massive focus boost. Now, something else that we can do to help ourselves is to reset primitive alarms. Now, what the heck am I talking about with resetting primitive alarms? That means changing our response to stimuli in our environment that tends to kick up the fight or flight instinct. So what Bonnie St. John calls it is an emotional hijack. So we know there's no lions, right? No real danger in our environments, but hey, heck, there's my cat Steve, who sometimes can be, a bit scary. So given, right, no real danger, it's just Steve. So given that there aren't any wild animals in our environments, what types of things do you think can cause an emotional hijack in our practices? So Craig, for you really quickly, what kinds of things do you think in a professional environment can become triggers and get people out of sorts emotionally?
It depends on how you track phone calls. To me, phone calls can, when you're busy, can sort of flash up the real danger signal, because it's like, oh, not something else to do, or someone's got an emergency, and it sort of puts you on the back burner. And also, I think when clients are discussing their payment options, or they open their mouth and you think they're complaining, but they're not. And so I think you just got to, a defense mechanism kicks in. You know, and I think that reality is 99 times out of 100, the problem you think is there isn't there, is exactly what you're saying, and you've just got to take a breath and just keep moving.
It's our perception and our fear of what might happen. It actually won't, probably. Some other things that can happen to kind of take us out of sorts is, the perception that we've been treated unfairly by a teammate or a colleague, feeling that you've got unrealistic deadlines or demands on you. A lack of appreciation, sometimes feeling as if you haven't been heard. So those are, there are heaps of opportunities within a team or with clients or patients or within your team to experience an emotional hijack, right? If we're not careful, we can allow ourselves to become unnecessarily emotional and kind of get out of our mojo, right? And by emotional, I mean, getting worried, getting angry, becoming passive aggressive, or actively kind of lashing out in some way because we're fearing the consequence of something that we think might happen. But as Craig pointed out, most of the time, that's not what's going to happen. But moving forward and moving back into getting into the practice, getting into the office, being together as a team again, there will be flashpoints here and there. Things may be more stressful some days because you're going to be doing things in your practices that you haven't really had to do before with PPE, with how you physically interact with your patients. Things are going to be slower and take some more time. So, your patients might be nervous or on edge about being around you. So all of that is a recipe for some potential emotional hijacks. So the first thing that we need to do when we feel ourselves beginning to spin out a little bit is to stop and label what it is we're feeling. So as Craig said, take a breath, right? Gives you a second to think. Take a breath and label what it is you're feeling. When we get specific, we're able to exercise more power over the emotion than it's exercising over us. So instead of just thinking, I'm upset, try to figure out why you're feeling upset. Are you frustrated? Are you feeling hurt? Are you feeling ashamed, feeling attacked, feeling defensive? Once we get a bit of distance from what we're feeling, which is that stopping to label things, that's what that is. You're pulling yourself out of the middle of the cyclone and you're kind of looking at it from outside going, isn't that interesting? Once we do that and we kind of pull ourselves out of the middle of that, the cyclone, we realize that we've got the power to choose how we react to that situation. So that's empowering. Stress isn't something that magically happens to us. It's how we react to situations that creates the stress. So stop, take a breath, label really clearly what you're feeling, and then you can deal with it, right? Another way to stop an emotional hijack is to re-engage your senses. Get your mind to refocus on the present moment and your immediate surroundings. And my husband and I had a conversation in the car a couple of years ago, and he's a born pessimist, right? He's just kind of, that's his natural tendency. And he was remarking to me one day, he said, Jen, I'm just amazed that you seem to have this natural ability to point out things in the environment, you know, like the beautiful blue sky today or whatever it is. And I don't think of those things naturally. It's really interesting. So if you can, you know, if you're not naturally wired to appreciate your current environment, it's a good thing to practice and to develop the ability to do that, because it really helps you to stop going down an emotional spiral. So this is an exercise that I think I saw on an app on my phone. It's called 5-4-3-2-1, and I think the app I had was called Calm. But when you feel emotionally overwhelmed, stressed out, your mind won't stop turning over, whatever, stop for literally a minute and focus on these 5 things, right? So take a note. Name 5 things you can see, right? I'm looking around my lounge at the moment. I can see my television. I can see my cat, Steve. He's not scary today. I can see my phone, the laptop, and my orange socks, right? So those are 5 things that I can see. Name 4 things you can touch. So what can you touch in your environment right now? 4 things, and actively reach out and touch them. Name 3 things you can hear. What do you hear? Do you hear bird song? Do you hear kids playing? Do you hear some activity in the kitchen? It's about lunchtime. Name 2 things you can smell. Now this sometimes is a tough one, depending on where you are, but 2 things you can smell. And 1 thing you can taste. Have you just brushed your teeth? Right? Have you had lunch? What's 1 thing you can taste? Basically, you're engaging your 5 senses. And when you're feeling anxious or upset or emotional, the second you start this exercise, as soon as you start it, your heart rate begins to lower, your breathing gets a little bit slower, and you just begin to relax and release just a bit. So this is a really quick, great micro exercise that you can do anytime throughout the day that you're feeling a bit stressed. And speaking of engaging our senses, did you know nutmeg, cinnamon, and vanilla have been scientifically proven to reduce your heart rate and help you feel a bit more relaxed? So those scents, those smells in our environment help to keep us relaxed. So Craig, you instituted an initiative in the office with vanilla bottles, didn't you?
I did that. It was twofold. One is if you're feeling stressed, you've got a vanilla bottle sitting in your office that you can open and just sort of have a bit of a smell and sort of slow down a bit. But the other reason with the other thing we use a vanilla bottle for is that if you need to talk to somebody in a way that you don't want them to take it personally, it's just about talking business operation, you take your vanilla bottle with you so that they can have a visual cue that what is about to be said is not a personal attack. It is just, there's something to discuss from a business perspective, and to please take it that way. So yeah, we've doubled up the vanilla bottle.
Doubled up the vanilla bottle. So if somebody comes with the vanilla bottle, you know you're going to have a serious discussion about it, that it's not personal, it's business focused, and helps to keep you calm. It's got that mental trigger of, hey, everybody's calm, it's all cool, we're having a productive discussion. So yeah, it's fascinating that if you know, and that's why real estate people bake cookies and have things that are awesome smelling in the houses that they do open houses for, when they're able to do that again. So, you know, trying to get those, set up your environment to help you remain calm. And those 3 scents have been scientifically proven to work. Cool. The next way that we can help ourselves to develop resilience is to learn to reframe our attitude when we recognize that it's not serving us. So we're all hardwired to more easily spiral down into doubt, suspicion, fear, worry, and anger in response to negative stimuli. So in the past, it was something that kept us safe, right? It was practical because we had to be suspicious of strange noises and poisonous plants and scary animals. But today, again, we don't have any of those immediate threats in our environment, but sometimes we seem to get caught up in a sequence of negative emotions around an interaction. It's just what we're wired to do. But we have the power to stop that and spiral up instead of down by focusing on changing our brains. And we all know it's, we're able to create new neural pathways by what we focus on and how we choose to speak to ourselves. So that's so cool. But changing the power to do that is really just within us. We need to practice. And there's some tactics that we can use to help ourselves out. And we'll cover those in just a second. But first, I'm going to introduce you to this guy. His name is Martin Seligman, PhD. He's known as Marty within the psychology community, but he's the guy who back in the 90s started the positive psychology movement. And he's a self-confessed pessimist. Go figure. So he said, life inflicts the same tragedies and, on the pessimist as the optimist, but the optimist weathers them better. The optimist weathers them better. So he basically said that positive people are predisposed to see things that happen to them as changeable. In other words, this too shall pass. And positive people don't take those things personally. And, how many times have we, myself included, internalized an offhanded comment or made something all about us when in fact it was about the other person's stuff? So negative people, on the other hand, are predisposed to see things that happen to them as permanent. Things just are this way. Prevalent. Everyone feels like this, don't they? And personal. The world's out to get me. He calls this set of beliefs learned helplessness. And on a personal note, and my husband will agree with me, I see this played out every time I talk to my mother-in-law, right? Life for her is hard, or at least that's how she perceives it. Now, I tend to be of the firm belief that life doesn't have to be hard, but it's practicing the positive mindset and is practicing reframing certain situations to help you be more productive and more effective. Because being positive or optimistic has actual benefits. We execute with more precision, we enjoy a boosted immune system, we're more creative, and we experience fewer overall health risks. So even now, to keep us safe over the next several months, being positive can help. As silly as that might sound, having a positive outlook can help to keep us healthy. So how do we do this? We bring positive stimuli into our environment. Pictures, things that make you happy when you see them. But if you've got pictures in your environment, you may want to change them out every so often because we kind of stop seeing them after a while. If it's the same pictures. Quotes, thank you notes from patients or friends, pictures drawn by your kids, maybe a souvenir you got on a family holiday. I've created a screensaver on my computer with pictures from our trip to Italy that we took for our 25th wedding anniversary. It's just awesome. It makes me feel good every time the screensaver comes on and I see those photos because I remember walking down those streets. A special book, words that make you feel good. Play music in your office. If your music, if music makes you feel good, play music. So too many offices I run into are too darn quiet, or they've got a local radio station playing, which I think is a bit unprofessional. Invest in a little stereo and build a few Spotify playlists, right? Ask your teenager to do this for you if you don't know how to do that. That you use during the day in the reception or in your treatment rooms. Music can just have a really calming effect on people because it's distracting as well. So that's one way to do it, is to fill your environment with positive stimuli. The next strategy to use when you need to consciously reframe your attitude toward a situation is to reverse the phrase. This is where we consciously flip a negative thought or belief or statement into a positive one. So this is how we begin to do that rewiring of our brains and create those new neural pathways. Reversing the phrase gets you to try on that opposite or positive perspective without judgment. I'm going to give an example of this. And again, this is a really personal example. I play the piano for fun. I took lessons for years as a kid and as a teenager, but as soon as I got to uni, I kind of lost touch with it and got out of practice for about 20 years. So while we were living in South Florida, I determined that I wanted to play again. I was 38 at the time. So I bought a secondhand piano. It looked just like this one off a person in my neighborhood. So as soon as I sat down at the keyboard, I really felt like I was home. I actually cried, I think, which I know sounds cheesy now, but it was really touching. So I wanted to learn how to play Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven. It's one of my favorite classical pieces. But for years I thought, there's no way I can learn to play Moonlight Sonata. It's too hard. I haven't been back into playing piano long enough. I've forgotten more than I ever learned, blah, blah, blah. So here's what I told myself instead. I'm learning to play Moonlight Sonata like a pro. Fast forward about a year, and after focusing on learning that piece little by little, and it's a long one, I attended my first piano recital in 25 years. I was 39, so I felt a little goofy, but I nailed the song. I played the whole thing without one mistake. I did it by reversing my internal dialogue, my language that I was telling myself about learning that piece of music. Now, I know that's a really specific example, but you can apply that concept to anything in your life that at the moment feels like, you know, you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot, or you're your own worst enemy. What is it that when you're in a negative frame of mind, you can reverse that phrase, reverse the framing, and put yourself in a more empowered position, so that over time you'll shift your perspective and be really amazed at what you can accomplish. Now, the next strategy that we can use to help build up our resilience muscles is to refresh our bodies. And again, I'm not telling you how to suck eggs here, but we really underestimate the importance of water in our daily lives. Water is key to peak mental and physical performance. As a matter of fact, a UK researcher studied 2 groups of people performing a challenging mental task. And they found that the group that drank water immediately before the task performed it 14% faster compared to the group that didn't drink water immediately before performing the task. I thought that was fascinating. So
you know why that is, though, Jennifer?
Why is that?
That first group's in a rush to get to the loo.
They're in a rush to get what?
Get to the loo.
Get to the loo.
Yeah.
So yeah, or they don't want to have to go to the loo. Yes, so I'm not going to drink water. I think so many times we go through the day and we're so busy that we just forget. So, but we know that it's got an immediate effect on our brains. So what can you do to keep yourself hydrated? Because when you don't, even mild hydration can make you confused, tired, and angry. We don't want that throughout the day. So what can we do? Yep, keep water in your environment. Make it taste good. If you're not a water person, put some fruit in it. Whatever works for you. Staying hydrated throughout the day helps you to remain resilient, focused, sharp. Because our brains are not only water hungry, but they're energy hungry. Our brains make up only 2% of our body weight, but they gobble up 20 to 25% of our total caloric intake. That's amazing. So we need to ensure that we're feeding our brains throughout the day. Don't allow yourself to get hangry, right? I just thought that was the cutest picture. We all know what this feels like, and we all know what this feels like when you're on the other side of it, when you're with someone who's hangry and they haven't really kind of kept up with themselves throughout the day. Yeah, it's no fun. Our teams know when we allow ourselves to get hangry, and so do our patients and our clients. So keep things in your environment that keep feeding your brain so that you can remain fresh and even-tempered. Now, part 6, one of the last steps that we can take to help to keep ourselves resilient is to renew our spirit. Now, I'm talking here about things that bring you joy, right? Getting in touch with your purpose. So the definition of purpose I'm going to share with you in just a minute is a bit different to what you might be expecting. It's definitely not woo-woo. So we facilitate a mastermind group that kind of zeroes in on the concept of purpose. And every time we facilitated that, some people immediately know and can speak clearly what their purpose is, and others really struggle. So for those of you who might be struggling a bit to determine your purpose in life or your giftedness that you can be intentional about developing, here's a more helpful definition, I think, of purpose: values plus goals. And we include in that those things that bring us joy. So values includes the things that bring us joy. So that's a definition I can get behind. It's not woo-woo, it's not theoretical, it's practical, and it's much easier for people to suss out. Now, we can find clues to our values in what makes us joyful. I remember just after we moved here, my husband and my daughter and myself, she was about 8 at the time. It was our second or third day in New Zealand. from the States, and we were in a little rented apartment in Hamilton. So our daughter Erin and me, we were sitting together in the lounge of this little apartment watching television. I don't know, it was the Watts or something. And my husband Josh was back taking a nap because, you know, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon and we were jet lagging really hard. And he was laying there half asleep and started panicking, thinking about all the stuff we'd left behind. His busy psychology practice, the nice house, the friends, the boat. And he started having some pretty strong, oh crap feelings. What have I done? He shared this with me a few days later. And he said that when he heard me and Erin out front laughing about something we'd seen, he immediately knew everything was going to be all right. We were the things in his life that brought him joy. Not the job, not the house, not the stuff. So what brings you joy? Is it your kids, your family, your pets? Is it travel? A certain type of work that you do? What brings you joy? I've got a worksheet that Craig and I have been through with the team at Generate, and I've got a worksheet that I can send to you if you ask for it through the chat function. So just type into chat values worksheet or yes please, and I will email it to you afterward. But it's adapted from Bonnie's Micro Resilience book, and it's a great exercise to do with another person who you trust, right? A great way to determine what your values are and what things bring you joy, and really considering how you can get more of that into your daily life or into your routine, your weekly routine. So if you could please type into chat if you would like me to send you that worksheet, that would be brilliant. So use that chat function and say, yes, worksheet, please, or values worksheet. Now, what I would encourage you to do is to kind of have a think through what we talked about so far and create almost an attitude first aid kit for yourself, right? So your attitude first aid kit is going to be made up of those things that you can look at, touch, listen to, smell, or hear that bring you instant happiness. Keep those things in a box or a file in your office or on a particular file on your laptop, right? Put them in digital format. When you need them, bring them out, right? If you're feeling overwhelmed and feeling stressed in the middle of a day and you just think, oh, I need something that's going to make me happy instantly, bring out the attitude first aid kit and have a look at what's in there and put it back away and head back into your day feeling refreshed. Because if we keep it out all the time, it's going to lose its impact. So it's something that you bring out when you need it, right? That's why it's called a first aid kit. This could be a great exercise to do with your team as a team building exercise, by the way. So if you share what you're learning here with your team, and then go through this creating your own attitude first aid kits together, can be a great way to build a little connection and learn something interesting about each other, right? Craig, we did this with the team at Generate, and you know, there were some interesting things that came out.
Oh, especially when you consider the makeup of our team, pretty much C's and S's. Once again, sorry, just personality, but pretty much if you think of an S being a nurse type personality, caring about others, and C being quite precise in what they do, quite, you know, they want to make sure the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So that's the predominant personality style within the accounting firm. So no, that was an interesting viewpoint, I guess you could say, at the end of it, but we all learned from it, and it's helped us, like any of this stuff can do, helped us get to where we are today. And I think one of the things you've got to consider is that when you go back to work tomorrow, you've just had 6 weeks off, it's going to be different. But not only is it going to be different from where you were 6 weeks ago, the next 6 months is going to be different. And I think you need to grab all of the opportunities you have to learn and grow yourself so that you get through not only tomorrow, but next week, next month, the next 6 months. And as I say, we don't know what the next 6 months is going to look like. And so I call myself the pessimistic optimist, or the optimistic pessimist, in that I'm optimistic, but I always look at what the worst case scenario is and know that it can't get worse than that. So I think you've just got to, you know, redefine how you're going to be living your life. And I think when you look at what we call ourselves, Generate Business and Life Solutions, we recognise that business is part of life, but life is a bigger event. And then unless you make the two work together, you're going to have problems. And I think the world had got to a point where it was so much about business, so much about business, people forgot about, you know, we actually live a life here, and it's actually shorter than what people think. And, you know, we need to be making some adjustments. So maybe this adjustment's being forced on us, but we all have the opportunity now to move forward and make some adjustments to what we do to get the best out of both your business and your life.
Brilliant. So it's kind of, our last session was all about finding opportunities in adversity, and it was very relevant to, yeah, this kind of really stinks what we've been going through, but there are opportunities to come out of it stronger. How do we find those? Cool. So today, team, we've really been talking about how you, as leaders in your practices, need to ensure you're building your own resilience muscles right now. So we're hoping that you go away from this session and share what you've learned with your team so that you can help them as well. So in just a moment, I'll give you the opportunity to participate in an upcoming mastermind group we're facilitating remotely, of course, called The Leader Shift. And it's based on a book by John C. Maxwell, all about how leaders, or anyone who's an example for others, right, either in the workplace or outside of it, need to shift their thinking in 11 key ways in order to maximize their effectiveness in the current environment. So I'll show you how you can participate in that in just a second. But first, I want to give you a couple more good bits and pieces. So when we talk about seizing the day, what we do today determines what's going to happen tomorrow. If we string together a great heap of todays, then we're going to have a whole great string of tomorrows, right? So what types of things can we focus on today to ensure we create different and better tomorrows for ourselves? Practicing resilience strategies every day is one way. Let's look at just a couple more before we wrap up the session. Thought this is The Thinker by Rodin, right? So thought is the source of all achievement. Everything that's ever been made started with a thought. So thinking increases our value because ideas are valuable. Thinking is a discipline to be practiced, and people who don't think ahead are habitually in reaction mode. I need to consciously choose to think on things that add value to myself and to others. And by setting aside a little time each day to engage in things like big picture thinking, creative thinking, strategic thinking, reflective thinking, by challenging accepted thinking, I can set myself and my practice up for greater success. So when you're resilient and in a positive mindset, it helps facilitate creative thought and open-mindedness to new ideas. So I'd encourage you to invest time to gather good input from those people around you and spend time with other people who are good thinkers to help develop your own abilities. Craig, how have you found running a busy practice, being able to set aside time to just think about the business and think about how you're going to move forward? How have you found fitting in time to do that has helped you? And have you found it to be a struggle to fit in time to do that?
Well, yes. I mean, I'm not going to lie. We all struggle to take the time to spend where we need to spend it. And if I was digital, I would capitalize the word need, I'd bold it, I'd underline it. We tend to think, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. Well, tomorrow always never arrives because it's always today. And so one of the things I've actually found lockdown has been good for is it's given me more space because people know that we're not technically working, even though we are, but the phone hasn't been ringing as often, and we've been able to just take that time out and think about what's tomorrow going to look like, what's next month going to look like. And I think, once again, come back to what I've already said, tomorrow is going to be a new day for everybody, and the rest of the year is going to be new for everybody. We don't exactly know what it's going to look like. So I think, you've got an opportunity now to start putting some boundaries in, and I think you've got to start. And when do you start? You start today.
Brilliant. So another way that we can move forward and help ourselves to move out of this strong is money. It's one of the biggest sources of stress, and it all boils down to whether we think we have enough of it. And at the end of the day, money is just a tool. It can't make us happy, but having enough of it or a bit of a margin gives us options. Now, I know this past month or so has been extremely hard on all of you on this webinar. And, as it has been on us, you're probably sick of thinking about money, but ensuring that you take actions each day that will help you best manage what you have will ensure that your tomorrows will be progressively better. So Craig, how many calls have you fielded from clients who are stressed, panicking, needing help and needing support? There's probably been heaps, eh?
Oh, they come and go, and they've got different issues. I mean, from our farming community, before the COVID even hit, we had issues with the drought. So there's always something. And I think you've just got to be mindful that, you know, exactly what you've said. Money's not the be all and end all. Yes, it gives you opportunities, but, you know, you've got to define your purpose.
Which goes back to that values exercise. Yeah.
Yep.
What makes you happy? Is it money? Probably not. The last thing that we can continue to work on to help us become more resilient, some of these little extra bits and pieces, is personal growth, right? Growth prevents personal and professional stagnation. Investing in your personal and professional growth is not a one-off occurrence. It needs to be a daily process. So kudos to you for being on the call today. I hope that you've taken something away that's made you think. But your personal growth impacts on your team's growth and on the growth of your practice. Are you holding your practice back because you're not investing enough in yourself? An organization full of people who are strong, have good habits and values, and who take care of themselves and other people is going to be unstoppable, or at the very least, really unusual in the marketplace, which will help to set you apart. I like to think that's a little bit of what we're trying to accomplish through initiatives like these monthly webinars, is to help to equip you with information that will really help you to step up and be, you know, head and shoulders above others that aren't as invested in their own development. So we want to expose you to different ways of thinking about the daily challenges of being in business, of dealing with patients, and of managing your communication and managing yourself, so that you set yourself up for even greater success when you implement what you learn. And that's the key. You can sit on these things and go away and go, oh, that was nice, but hopefully you'll pick something that you'll take away and you'll implement in your daily practices that will help you based on what we've shared with you. So if you've got any questions or feedback for us at the moment, go to the Q&A section. Don't go to the chat section, please. I'm going to open up the Q&A. If you've got a question for us, we've got just a couple of minutes before we finish wrapping up that we'll be able to answer questions for you. So do type something in. I'm going to keep moving on while I wait for questions to come through, and then I'll come back over to those. So remember, if you were on the call last time, we created something that I termed short-term interventions. Well, these were short sessions that were designed to be just really quick 3-week injections of support and guidance and information for you that would be helpful during this time. I've got one of these that's still available, and that is 3 weeks of team webinars. So now that you guys are getting back into things, is it useful to have 3 short team trainings around time management, around DISC communication, and around what it takes to be a world-class team, right? If those things could be helpful, I'll show you what you need to do in a little bit to ask for some information about that. So that's still available. We're also doing a mastermind around the Leader Shift book, right? The book I shared with you a little bit earlier about key shifts that leaders must make right now in order to be most effective. And Craig, do you want to, I'm going to check the Q&A real quick. If you would kind of explain how a mastermind works really quickly, that would be great.
So basically a mastermind is where we work our way through a book together. So the book is, in this case, Jennifer's highlighted is Leadership from John Maxwell. He has written over 70 books. This is just one of them. It's one of his later ones. And so we just work through over 6 weeks. So based on the number of chapters, we might do 2 chapters a week. And we just bring up questions, we have discussions, and we just help grow each other through that process. And it works really well. I've run quite a few of these with my team, and it's something that becomes an event that because you're working through it together, it's like a family event. It's something that you're all growing and learning. You learn a bit about each other and about yourselves through the process. So it's actually a very positive team thing to do.
And there's a couple different topics that are appropriate for the team versus appropriate for leaders of organizations. This particular one is all around how you as a leader need to shift your mindset such that you begin developing other leaders who are, your colleagues, the people around you, to kind of shift from that really solo mindset to being part of a wider team to end up getting a better result. So it's a really, really good, meaty book. Really good discussion can come from that. And how we facilitate these is we do them on Zoom, but we'll do meeting style. So it'll be a small group and we'll be able to see and talk to each other, which is always nice. So that's that. I'll tell you how to take advantage of that in just a second. I had a question in the Q&A while you were doing that, and it was all around those 11 shifts. So that's something, yes, Kay, thank you for that question. If you'd like some more information, I can share that with you. But here's what you need to do if either one of those things sounds helpful to you, right? We had the team sessions or the mastermind on leadership. Email Craig and Jennifer at generate.solutions and type team or mastermind in the subject line. Now, I've got a good brain. I'm a pretty smart chick. I keep lots of stuff in my head, but I can't remember if you put something in Q&A or whatever that you've wanted information. So you've got to send me through an email because I'm getting older, right? And let me know that you need some information, and I will definitely send it back out to you within the next 24 hours. So email Craig and Jennifer at generate.solutions with which thing you need help with, and yeah, we're certain to get back to you. So thanks for that. All right, team, here's what's coming up. We just talked about that. June, growth, growing out of COVID. What does sustainable growth look like? Marketing activity that makes sense, and considering profitability when you're thinking about marketing. July. Oh, Craig, you're probably looking at the alignment of the words under July, and it's probably driving you crazy because it's a little goofy. Noticing that myself. Communication. So better connection with people, understanding different communication and personality styles, and how to run effective meetings, right? We know that you need to have team meetings in your practices. They're really important, but how do you make them really effective? And in August, we're going to be talking about teamwork. What does a world-class team look like? Tools to enhance your connection as a team, and the importance of accountability. So that's what's coming up over the next few months. Team, if you'd like to join us. And why do we do this? We want to grow you so you can grow your people and your practice can grow and be healthier, more competitive, and more satisfying for you. And that's us for today, team. Get in touch if you have any questions, and we will see you next month. Have an awesome rest of your day.
Hi, Jen Myers here. I hope you enjoyed that video and it got you thinking about how to implement that topic into your practice. If you have any questions whatsoever, myself or Craig, we are more than happy to answer questions for you and help you understand how to apply what you've just watched and what you've just heard into your specific practice in your unique situation. So please click the button that says book a meeting, and we are more than happy to spend a few minutes with you going through the information and how you can apply it. So thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.